Lagos, Nigeria. The city pulsed under the blazing sun, a chaotic symphony of honking horns, laughter, and the frenetic energy of a thriving African metropolis. Glass skyscrapers gleamed above bustling markets, where vendors shouted their wares and motorcycles weaved through gridlocked traffic. In the heart of this vibrant city, in the upscale district of Ikoyi, stood the imposing headquarters of Andre and Sons Group, a company that epitomized Nigerian success. Founded 30 years ago by Mr. Andre Okonkwo, the empire dominated real estate, transportation, and agribusiness, with branches across the country. But it wasn't just Andre's wealth that made him a household name. It was his wisdom, generosity, and natural charisma that earned him near legendary status. Andre Okonkwo, now well into his 60s, was a commanding presence, not in stature, but in aura. His graying hair, neatly trimmed, and his piercing eyes seemed to see into people's souls. He often wore tailored traditional agbadas, enhancing his patriarchal demeanor. Sitting in his office on the top floor of the headquarters, surrounded by floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a panoramic view of Lagos, Andre gazed at his empire with a mix of satisfaction and contemplation. He had built it all from nothing, the son of a farmer from a village in Anambra. Every signed contract, every open branch, every hired employee was the fruit of his relentless work and vision, a prosperous Nigeria where effort and integrity were rewarded. Yet despite his billions, luxurious properties, and gleaming cars, one thing made him prouder than all else: his only son, Paul. At 28, Paul was the light of his life, the embodiment of his hopes and values. Tall, with radiant brown skin, curly hair, and a smile that could light up any room, Paul was not only handsome, but brilliant. He had been studying medicine at a prestigious university in the UK for 6 years, specializing in pediatric surgery. Andre often received calls from professors praising Paul's intelligence and compassion. But what touched Andre most was Paul's simplicity, his refusal to be defined by the family's wealth. "Dad, I want to make a difference, not just live in luxury," Paul had once told him during a late-night call. Those words were etched in Andre's heart. That afternoon, as golden sunlight bathed his office, Andre picked up his phone and dialed Paul's number. Thousands of miles away in a modest London apartment, Paul answered, his warm voice filling the line. "Dad, how are you?" "My boy," Andre replied, a smile in his voice. "I'm well, but I miss you." "When are you coming home?" Paul chuckled, a laugh that reminded Andre of his late wife, Amina, who had passed away 10 years earlier. "Soon, Dad. My final exams are in 2 weeks, and then I'll be in Lagos." Andre nodded, though Paul couldn't see him. "You promised me something, Paul. Remember? After your studies, you said you'd get married." Paul burst out laughing. "Dad, always in a hurry. Don't worry, I'll find a good woman when I return." Andre leaned back in his leather chair, his gaze drifting to the Lagos skyline. "I trust you, son, but I'm going to help you a little. I've spotted 2 women in the company, Élodie and Camille. They're hardworking, intelligent, respectful. I think they could make fine wives for you." Paul, across the Atlantic, raised an eyebrow. "Dad, you're already choosing for me." His tone was teasing, but Andre sensed a spark of curiosity. "I'm not forcing you, Paul," Andre said with a laugh. "I'm guiding you. You'll be free to choose, but consider them. Élodie is gentle, humble, always ready to help. Camille is ambitious, full of energy. They both work in my HR department, and I've been watching them for a while." Paul fell silent for a moment, thinking. Then a bold idea sparked in his mind, reflecting his deep desire to find genuine love, free from the trappings of wealth. "Dad, what if I came back incognito? What if I posed as a lowly employee, say, a security guard at the company? That way I could see who loves me for me, not for your money." Andre let out a hearty laugh that echoed through his office. "You're truly my son, always seeking the truth." "All right, Paul, I'll arrange it, but be careful not to give yourself away." Paul grinned, a glint of excitement in his eyes. "It'll be fun, Dad, and I'll know who has a pure heart." The next morning, Andre rose early, as was his habit. After a silent prayer for his family and company, he settled into his office, ready to set Paul's plan in motion. He pressed the intercom button and said to his secretary, "Please call Élodie in." Élodie Nwosu, 26, entered the office with natural grace. Her braided hair was neatly tied in a bun, and her outfit, a navy pencil skirt and white blouse, was simple yet elegant. Élodie came from humble roots, raised in a small village near Enugu. Orphaned by her father, she was brought up by a seamstress mother who taught her the value of hard work and dignity. Thanks to her stellar academic record, Élodie had earned a scholarship to study management at the University of Lagos. Hired by Andre and Sons 3 years ago, she quickly stood out for her professionalism and kindness. Colleagues loved her for her attentiveness, and even the cleaners considered her a friend. "Good morning, Mr. Andre," Élodie said with a shy smile, her eyes sparkling with warmth. "Good morning, Élodie. Please sit down," Andre replied, his paternal tone instantly putting her at ease. Élodie sat, slightly intrigued. Andre leaned forward, hands clasped on his desk. "Élodie, I've been watching you since you joined us. You're respectful, intelligent, and you have a generous heart. My son Paul will soon return from his medical studies abroad. I think you could be an ideal wife for him." Élodie blushed, lowering her eyes. She wasn't used to such compliments, let alone such a direct proposition. "Sir, thank you for considering me. I don't know what to say." Andre smiled. "You don't need to say anything. Just be yourself when he arrives. If he chooses you, I'll be delighted. But there's no obligation." Élodie nodded, her heart racing. As she left the office, she felt a mix of emotions. Gratitude for Andre's trust, but also unease. She had never considered marrying for wealth or status. All she wanted was sincere love, like the one her parents had shared before her father's passing. An hour later, it was Camille Adebayo's turn to enter the office. At 27, Camille was a woman who turned heads. Tall, with a statuesque figure, she wore a fitted red dress and high heels that clicked confidently on the marble floor. Her sleek, glossy hair framed a meticulously made-up face. Camille hailed from Ibadan, where she grew up in a middle-class family. Since her teenage years, she had dreamed of grandeur, inspired by TV dramas where ambitious women married wealthy men. Hired by Andre and Sons after earning a degree in communications, she had established herself as a competent employee, but her arrogance and superiority complex had earned her some enemies. "Good morning, Mr. Andre," Camille said, her voice brimming with confidence. "Good morning, Camille." "Sit down," Andre replied, his tone more neutral than with Élodie. Camille sat, crossing her legs with calculated elegance. Andre repeated his speech, praising her intelligence, professionalism, and charisma. "I believe you could be a good match for my son, Paul. Be yourself, and if he chooses you, I'll be pleased." Camille smiled, her eyes gleaming with ambition. "Thank you, sir. I'll do my best to live up to your expectations." As she left the office, she whispered to herself, "Soon I'll be the wife of a billionaire. I need to be perfect every day." In her mind, images of designer dresses, private jet trips, and high society galas danced vividly. Camille had no doubt she was the best candidate, and no one, not even Élodie, could outshine her. But 2 weeks later, Murtala Muhammad International Airport in Lagos was a hive of activity. Travelers bustled through the arrivals hall, their suitcases clattering on the tiled floor, while drivers held up hastily written signs. Amid the crowd, Paul Okonkwo stepped off the plane, dressed in a plain gray t-shirt and worn jeans, a cap pulled low to avoid attention. His eyes, hidden behind cheap sunglasses, scanned the crowd for his father. He dragged an old battered suitcase, a deliberate choice to fit his role as a humble security guard. At 28, Paul had learned to navigate two worlds, the luxury his birth entitled him to, and the simplicity he cherished. During his years in London, he had lived in a small apartment, cooked his own meals, and avoided the elitist circles of wealthy heirs. This experience had solidified his belief. True love couldn't be bought. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through the noise. "Paul, my boy!" Andre Okonkwo, dressed in a sharply tailored navy suit, pushed through the crowd, arms wide open. Paul dropped his suitcase and rushed to embrace his father. The hug was warm, heavy with years of separation and unwavering love. "Dad, you haven't changed," Paul said, a radiant smile lighting up his face. "And you're even taller than I remember," Andre replied, patting his son's shoulder. "Come, the car's waiting. Tonight, we celebrate your return. In the black Mercedes, whisking them to the family residence on Banana Island, Paul studied his father. Andre looked tired, but his eyes sparkled with undimmed energy. "Dad, how's the company?" Paul asked, curious. Andre sighed, a mix of pride and weariness. "It's thriving, but I'm not getting any younger. 30 years building this empire, and now I want to pass the torch. Not right away, but soon. That's why your return is so important." Paul nodded, understanding the weight of that responsibility, but his mind was elsewhere, already focused on his plan. "Dad, I'm serious about my idea. I want to be a security guard. I want to see who people really are around you. Around me." Andre burst into laughter, a deep sound that filled the car. "You're stubborn, just like your mother. All right, I'll arrange everything. Tomorrow you'll be Paul Aid, daytime security guard at the headquarters. No one will know who you are, not even my directors. But be careful, son. People reveal their true selves when they think no one important is watching." That evening, the Okonkwo residence, a lavish villa surrounded by palm trees and fountains, lit up for a festive dinner. The staff had prepared a Nigerian feast: spicy jollof rice, moambe chicken, steaming egusi stew, and fried plantains. Paul, dressed in a traditional shirt sewn by his aunt, savored every bite, rediscovering the flavors of his childhood. Between courses, Andre shared stories of his early days in business, making Paul laugh heartily. But as dessert, a mango pudding, was served, Paul brought up the topic on his mind. "Dad, let's talk about Élodie and Camille." "Why them?" he asked, setting down his spoon. Andre wiped his mouth with a linen napkin, reflecting. "Élodie is a rare gem. She works hard but doesn't seek the spotlight. She helps others without expecting anything in return. I've seen her give her lunch to a colleague who had nothing to eat. She reminds me of your mother, her humility, her quiet strength." Paul smiled, touched by the comparison. His mother, Amina, had been a woman of boundless generosity, always ready to lend a hand. "And Camille?" he asked. Andre shrugged, a hint of doubt in his eyes. "Camille is different. She's brilliant, ambitious, and she knows how to stand out. She has potential, but sometimes I wonder if her heart is as big as her ego. I want you to judge for yourself." Paul nodded, his plan taking shape in his mind. "Tomorrow I start. Paul Aid, security guard. Get ready to laugh, Dad." Andre raised his glass of sparkling water. "To your adventure, my son. May you find what you're looking for." The next morning at 6 a.m., Paul stood at the main gate of Andre and Son's headquarters, dressed in a faded security guard uniform borrowed from a retired employee. The khaki shirt was slightly too big, and the worn trousers smelled of cheap soap. Paul swept the courtyard with a straw broom, his movements slow and deliberate, as if he'd done this his whole life. Employees arrived gradually, their shiny cars contrasting with his humble appearance. Most passed without a glance, too absorbed in their phones or conversations. Paul observed everything, noting attitudes, glances, and whispers. Élodie was among the first to arrive. She stepped off a Danfo, a crowded local minibus, her satchel slung over her shoulder. As she passed the gate, she stopped and smiled at Paul. "Good morning. Are you new here?" Paul, surprised by her kindness, responded with a shy smile. "Good morning, ma'am. Yes, I just started. My name's Paul." "Nice to meet you, Paul. I'm Élodie. Welcome." Her smile was genuine, free of condescension. She walked away, her steps light on the gravel, leaving Paul with a warm feeling in his chest. She's different, he thought. Camille, on the other hand, made her entrance an hour later, driving a second-hand Toyota she maintained like a luxury car. Her high heels clacked loudly, and her expensive perfume lingered in the air. She passed Paul without a glance, her phone glued to her ear, loudly discussing a project with a colleague. Paul raised an eyebrow, amused. Already in her own world, he thought. Over the next few days, Paul immersed himself in his role. He swept, opened gates, guided visitors, always with a discreet smile. He quickly learned the company's dynamics. Employees formed cliques, some loyal to Andre, others focused on their own advancement. Camille, in particular, acted like royalty. During lunch breaks, she sat with a select group of friends, throwing veiled insults at those she deemed inferior. Some people here think they can climb the ranks by kissing up to the boss, she said one day, loud enough for everyone to hear. Her friends laughed, but several colleagues exchanged annoyed glances. Élodie stayed above such power games. At the canteen, she shared her meal with a cleaner named Mama Ngozi, a widow in her 50s struggling to make ends meet. Paul, watching from afar, noted how Élodie listened attentively to Mama Ngozi's stories, offering quiet comfort. One day under the scorching sun, Élodie approached Paul with a cold bottle of water. "Here, it's hot today. You must be thirsty." Paul, touched by the simple gesture, took the bottle. "Thank you so much, Élodie. That's kind of you." She shrugged, a modest smile on her lips. "It's nothing. Take care of yourself." As she walked away, Paul murmured, "A heart of gold." Camille, meanwhile, grew increasingly convinced her destiny was sealed. Since her meeting with André, she had doubled her efforts to stand out. She arrived at the office in ever more sophisticated outfits, spending much of her salary on imported dresses and flashy jewelry. During meetings, she spoke with confidence even when her ideas lacked depth. Her colleagues, though sometimes impressed, whispered behind her back. "She already thinks she's the boss," one assistant muttered to another. Camille, oblivious to the gossip, strutted about, certain that André's son would fall for her charm. One morning, she spotted Élodie in a hallway, discussing a training project for new employees with a colleague. Irritated by the attention Élodie was receiving, Camille approached, a forced smile on her lips. "Élodie, a word." Élodie, surprised, followed Camille to a quiet corner. "What's up?" she asked calmly. Camille crossed her arms, her gaze sharp. "Stop pretending to be perfect. Everyone knows you're trying to impress the boss. But let's be clear, you're no match for me. I'm more elegant, smarter, and Paul will choose me." Élodie, taken aback, responded gently. "Camille, I'm not competing with you. I'm just doing my job." Camille scoffed. "Good, but don't you dare get in my way." She turned on her heel, leaving Élodie puzzled, but resolved not to be intimidated. Paul, sweeping nearby, overheard part of the exchange. He gripped his broom tighter, annoyed by Camille's arrogance, but he held back, staying true to his role. "She's already showing her true colors," he thought. A few days later, during lunch, Camille sat with her usual clique, her voice carrying across the canteen. "Soon I'll be Mr. André's daughter-in-law," she declared loudly. "Some people here need to learn to respect me. Once I'm married, I'll have those who gossip about me fired." Employees exchanged shocked glances, but no one dared respond. Élodie, eating at a nearby table, looked up briefly, then resumed her meal unruffled. Paul, cleaning a table nearby, noted the contrast between the two women. One sought power, the other peace. Over the weeks, Paul began to forge a bond with Élodie. Their interactions were brief but meaningful. Each morning, she greeted him with a smile, sometimes with a casual comment about the weather or Lagos's hustle. One rainy day, Élodie stopped under the gate's awning, soaked despite her umbrella. Paul, on duty, handed her a towel from his bag. "Here, you'll catch a cold." Élodie laughed, wiping her face. "Thanks, Paul. You're always prepared." He shrugged, a half smile on his lips. "Gotta be with this weather." They chatted briefly, and for the first time, Paul felt a genuine connection. Élodie treated him not as a guard, but as an equal. She asked about his life, curious without being intrusive. "Where are you from, Paul?" He improvised, keeping it vague. "A small village near Abuja." "You?" "Enugu," she replied, her eyes lighting up. "My mom's still there, making beautiful dresses." Paul smiled, picturing a woman as warm as Élodie. "She must be proud of you." Élodie looked down, a bit embarrassed. "She says I work too much, but I love what I do. Why a security guard?" Paul hesitated, then answered honestly while staying in character. "It's honest work, and it lets me see people for who they really are." Élodie nodded, as if grasping something profound. "You're right. People show who they are when they think no one's watching." That conversation marked a turning point for Paul. He began seeking excuses to cross paths with Élodie, whether delivering a file to her office or lingering near the fountain where she read during breaks. Each interaction deepened his admiration for her. Élodie, too, felt a growing attraction to this mysterious guard, whose eyes seemed to hide a bigger story than he let on. As weeks passed, Paul settled into his double life. Each morning he donned his worn guard uniform and stood at the company gate, broom in hand, observing the flow of employees. As a guard, he was invisible to most, giving him a unique perspective on people's true characters. Camille, in particular, revealed a darker side. One Friday morning, Camille made a theatrical entrance, wearing a vibrant red dress that screamed ambition. Her jewelry sparkled in the lobby's light, and her heels echoed like a war drum. She stopped before a group of employees, barking orders with unearned authority. The files for the meeting need to be ready by noon," she snapped at an assistant who nodded nervously. Turning to a colleague, she added, "And tell the cleaner to do a better job in my office. It smells like dust." Employees exchanged annoyed glances, but no one dared confront her. Convinced her marriage to Andre's son was imminent, Camille already acted like the company's queen. Paul, sweeping nearby, watched with an ironic smile. She thinks the world is hers, he thought, mentally noting her behavior. Camille had never spoken to him, except to order him to open the gate faster or move a trash can. She barely looked at him, as if he were a piece of furniture. Paul, playing his part, responded with a polite, "Yes, ma'am," but inside he seethed. How can she be so arrogant, he wondered. Élodie, meanwhile, continued to shine with simplicity. Each morning she arrived with a smile, greeting Paul like an old friend. One day, as he hauled trash bins under the scorching sun, she approached with a plate of homemade beignets. "Here, Paul, my mom made these. She says they give you energy for the day." Paul, surprised by the gesture, took the plate gratefully. "Thanks, Élodie. You didn't have to." She shrugged, her eyes twinkling. "It's my pleasure. You work hard here, and no one seems to notice." Her words touched Paul more than he cared to admit. He realized Élodie saw people, truly saw them, beyond their status or appearance. That day, he decided to spend more time with her, even if it risked his disguise. During a lunch break, he sat at a table near hers, pretending to read an old newspaper. Élodie, spotting him, invited him over. "Paul, come eat with us. Mama Ngozi brought suya. It's delicious." Mama Ngozi, the cleaner, handed him a spicy meat skewer with a maternal smile. "Listen to Élodie, young man. She knows what's good." Paul laughed, accepting the skewer. The conversation that followed was light but genuine. Élodie spoke of her village, her mother's dream of opening a tailoring shop in Lagos, and her love for books. Paul, cautious, shared vague anecdotes about his supposed past in Abuja, but found himself letting his guard down. Élodie had a way of asking questions that put him at ease, as if she saw beyond his uniform. Camille, meanwhile, began noticing the attention Élodie received, not just from colleagues but from this guard she despised. One afternoon, as she left the building, she saw Élodie hand Paul a soda bottle. Furious, she approached, her heels clacking with heightened intensity. "Élodie, you're wasting your time with this guard. You should focus on important things, like impressing the boss's son." Élodie, startled by the attack, responded calmly. "Camille, I'm not wasting my time. I'm just being polite." Camille sneered, her gaze sharp. "Polite? You think your fake humility will get you anywhere? Here's some advice. Stay in your lane." Paul, who overheard everything, clenched his fist but held back. He wanted to see how far Camille would go. Élodie simply smiled. "Good luck, Camille. I hope you find what you're looking for." She walked away, leaving Camille fuming. Camille's arrogance reached its peak one Friday afternoon during an informal break room meeting. She entered dressed in a sequined gown more suited for a gala than an office. Addressing a stunned group of employees, she declared, "Listen up, everyone. Soon I'll be Mr. Andre's daughter-in-law. Those who gossip about me, your days are numbered." She pointed a manicured finger at Élodie, who was sorting documents at a nearby table. "You, Élodie, stop pretending to be perfect. You know I'm the best." Élodie looked up, her face calm. "Camille, I'm not competing with you. Respect yourself and respect others." The room held its breath. No one had ever stood up to Camille with such quiet confidence. Camille, red with anger, stormed out, her heels clacking like gunshots. Employees whispered, some admiring Élodie's courage, others fearing Camille's retaliation. Paul, cleaning a window outside, overheard the exchange through a cracked pane. He smiled, impressed by Élodie's dignity. She doesn't back down, he thought, but he knew Camille wouldn't stop there. Her pride wouldn't allow it. The next morning, at the company gate, Camille strode past Paul, perched on her heels. He opened the gate and greeted her politely. "Good morning, ma'am." Camille stopped dead, glaring at him. "You dare speak to me with your filthy mouth? Don't greet me again, you lowly guard." Paul, stung, responded calmly but with a hint of boldness. "You think you're already the boss's wife just because he mentioned his son? You don't even know what he looks like." Camille, outraged, shrieked, "How dare you? I'll have you fired." She pointed a trembling finger at him, her face contorted with rage. "You don't know who you're talking to. I'll make sure you're back sweeping the streets of your miserable village." Paul shrugged, unfazed. "Go ahead, try." Then, in a lower tone, he added, "You just showed who you really are." Camille, beside herself, insulted his parents, throwing cruel words about their supposed poverty. Paul felt a dull ache in his chest, thinking of his mother, Emina, and his father's hard-earned success. But he stayed calm, saying only, "You'll regret those words one day." Furious, Camille stormed into Andre's office, demanding an immediate audience. "Sir, you must fire that insolent guard. He insulted me and disrespected your future son-in-law." Andre, seated behind his desk, listened with serene composure. "Calm down, Camille. Paul is a good young man. If he spoke to you that way, there's a reason. I won't fire him." Camille, stunned, pressed on. "Why are you protecting him? He's just a guard." Andre smiled mysteriously. "You wouldn't understand. Now get back to work." Camille left the office, confused and enraged. Why was Andre defending a mere guard? She began to suspect a plot, fueling her paranoia. "They're mocking me," she thought, "but I'll show them." That evening, at the Okonkwo residence, Paul recounted the incident to his father over ginger tea. "Camille is unbearable, Dad. She insulted me, lied about you and Mom. She thinks everything is owed to her." Andre sighed, rubbing his temples. "I almost chose her for you, Paul. What a mistake that would have been." Paul laughed, shaking his head. "This disguise was the best idea I've had. Camille only sees power and money. But Élodie, she's different. She gave me beignets today, Dad, just because." Andre smiled, pride in his eyes. "Keep playing your game, son, but be careful. Élodie seems special, but human hearts are complex." Paul nodded, determined to learn more about Élodie. The next day, he found an excuse to talk to her. As she left the building at the end of the day, he called out, "Élodie, can I speak with you for a moment?" She stopped, surprised but curious. "Sure, Paul. What's up?" They moved away from the gate, sitting on a bench near the company fountain. Paul, nervous despite himself, took a deep breath. "Élodie, I love you. I know I'm just a guard with nothing to offer, but my feelings are real. Will you be my girlfriend?" Élodie's eyes widened, her heart pounding. She had felt drawn to Paul since their first meeting, touched by his kindness and soulful gaze. "Paul, I love you too. I loved you from the first day, when you smiled at me in the rain." Paul, overjoyed, felt warmth flood through him. "What about the boss's son?" he asked, testing her sincerity. Élodie laughed softly. "I don't care about him, Paul. Love isn't about money or status. If we lose our jobs for being together, we'll find others." They sealed their promise with a knowing look, agreeing to keep their relationship secret to avoid gossip. But Paul knew their story wouldn't stay hidden for long, especially with Camille circling like a hawk. Camille, growing suspicious, noticed the glances between Élodie and Paul. She couldn't believe Élodie, whom she saw as an insignificant rival, would waste time with a mere guard. She's up to something, Camille thought. Determined to protect her claim as Andre's future daughter-in-law, she took action. She approached Blessing, a cleaner known for her love of gossip, with an offer. "Blessing, keep an eye on Élodie and that guard, Paul. If they're too close, I want to know. You'll be well rewarded." Blessing, tempted by the promise of money, agreed. A few days later, she caught Paul and Élodie kissing behind the building at dusk. She rushed to report it to Camille, who gloated, "I've got them. They'll both be fired." The next day, Camille confronted Élodie in the office, a triumphant smile on her lips. I know everything, Élodie. You and that pathetic guard sneaking around kissing. I'm telling Mr. Andre, and you'll both be out on the street. Élodie, calm despite the threat, replied, Camille, do what you want. But before you speak, think about yourself. I saw you leaving Julien's apartment at midnight. If you talk, I'll talk too. Camille paled, caught off guard. She had indeed started a secret fling with Julien, the new representative, as a backup plan in case Andre's son delayed. Furious, she stormed off, but her mind raced. I'll find another way, she thought. The days following the confrontation were thick with tension at Andre and Son's. Camille, shaken but undeterred, doubled her efforts to stand out, ensuring she was seen with Julien while keeping tabs on Élodie and Paul. She was certain that, sooner or later, she'd secure her place at the top by Andre's son's side. Paul, meanwhile, cherished his moments with Élodie, though they remained discreet. They exchanged knowing glances in the hallways, shared furtive conversations by the fountain, and sometimes met after work at a quiet cafe across Lagos. Élodie spoke of her dreams, opening a school for underprivileged children in Enugu, inspired by her own modest upbringing. Paul, awed by her compassion, found himself sharing bits of his real life, though vaguely. I've always wanted to help people too, he told her one evening over soda under flickering neon lights. Maybe one day we can work on something big together. Élodie smiled, her eyes bright with hope. That would be wonderful, Paul. No matter who you are, I know you have a big heart. Her words strengthened Paul's resolve. He knew he was nearing the moment to reveal his true identity, but he wanted to be certain of Élodie's feelings. Each day as a guard deepened his admiration for her and his disdain for Camille, whose arrogance grew by the day. One morning, an announcement spread through the company. Mr. Andre was calling all employees to an extraordinary meeting in the main conference room. Whispers buzzed. Some speculated about a restructuring, others about a major promotion. Camille, certain the announcement involved the official arrival of Andre's son, prepared meticulously, choosing a golden dress that turned heads. Élodie, true to her simplicity, opted for a modest yet elegant professional outfit, focusing on her work rather than the rumors. At 10 a.m. sharp, the conference room was packed. Employees, from senior executives to assistants, crammed into chairs as the air conditioning struggled to cool the tense atmosphere. Andre entered, dressed in a pristine white agbada, his commanding presence silencing the room. He stood at the podium, a cryptic smile on his lips. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice resonating with authority, thank you for your hard work and loyalty to Andre and Sons. For 30 years, I've built this company with you, and I'm proud of what we've achieved. But the time has come for me to step back. I've decided to gradually retire from leadership. A murmur of shock rippled through the room. Employees exchanged glances, some stunned, others curious. Camille, seated in the front row, lifted her chin, certain the next announcement would involve her. Élodie, further back, listened intently, hands clasped in her lap. Andre raised a hand to quiet the crowd. My son, Paul, will soon arrive to take a role in the company. But in the meantime, I've appointed a temporary representative, Mr. Julien Adeyemi, to oversee operations. You'll meet him soon. Camille, convinced Andre would mention her as the future daughter-in-law, raised her hand confidently. Mr. Andre, when will your son arrive exactly? She asked, her voice sweet but calculated. Andre fixed her with a steady gaze, his smile widening slightly. Very soon, Camille. Very soon. The employees dispersed, buzzing with speculation about this mysterious Paul and Julien. Camille, beaming, whispered to her friend beside her, It's only a matter of days. I'll meet Andre's son, and everyone will see who I really am. Élodie, overhearing, shook her head with a faint smile. She had no interest in Camille's power games. Her mind was on Paul, the guard who made her heart race. That afternoon, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the company's main entrance. A man stepped out, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that seemed custom-made. Julien Adeyemi, in his 30s, exuded natural elegance, with sharp features and a charming smile that left no one indifferent. A former executive at a multinational in Abuja, he had been chosen by Andre for his professionalism and ability to manage complex teams. But Julien also had a reputation as a charmer, which Camille instantly noticed. During his introductory meeting, Julien presented himself with ease. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julian Adeyemi, and I'll temporarily lead Andre and Sons in Mr. Andre's absence. I count on your collaboration to maintain this company's excellence. Let's work together with respect and efficiency. Camille, in the front row, crossed her legs ostentatiously, a seductive smile on her lips. After the meeting, she approached Julian, extending a perfectly manicured hand. Mr. Adeyemi, welcome. I'm Camille Adebayo from HR. I'm sure we'll do great things together. Julian, accustomed to such advances, responded with a polite but distant smile. Thank you, Ms. Adebayo. I look forward to working with the whole team. Camille, undeterred, saw Julian as another opportunity. If Andre's son delayed, she could secure a favorable position with Julian, who seemed destined for a bright future. She whispered to her friend, "He's gorgeous. If Paul takes too long, I'll take this one." Élodie, overhearing as she passed by, shook her head, annoyed by Camille's opportunism, but she stayed silent, focusing on her work and Paul. Paul, still playing the guard, watched Julian's arrival with amusement and vigilance. He knew his father had chosen Julian for his competence, but he also noticed Camille circling him like a vulture. She doesn't waste time, he thought, his disdain for her growing. Meanwhile, his bond with Élodie deepened. One evening, as they strolled in a park near the company, Paul decided to test her sincerity one last time. Élodie, if you had the chance to marry a rich man like the boss's son, would you? Élodie looked him in the eyes, her voice firm. Paul, I don't want a man for his money. I want someone who respects me, who shares my values. You make me laugh. You listen to me. That's what matters. Paul's heart raced. He knew the time to reveal the truth was near. But before he could speak, Camille escalated her schemes. Through Blessing, she had gathered evidence of Élodie and Paul's relationship. Blurry photos of them kissing, colleague testimonies. She decided to strike. One morning, she stormed into Andre's office, brandishing her phone like a weapon. Mr. Andre, I have something to show you. Élodie, your precious employee, is dating a guard. They're mocking you and your son. Andre, unflappable, looked at the photos. Thank you, Camille. I'll handle it. Camille left, triumphant, certain Élodie and Paul would be fired. But Andre had another plan. He called Élodie and Camille to a meeting at his residence the following Saturday. Come, both of you. We have things to discuss. On Saturday morning, the Okonkwo residence was a haven of peace, surrounded by lush gardens and murmuring fountains. Élodie arrived first, dressed in a simple but elegant dress, her braided hair in a neat bun. Andre welcomed her warmly, seating her in the living room adorned with Yoruba sculptures and Persian rugs. Élodie, thank you for coming. I have someone to introduce you to. Paul entered, dressed in a royal blue traditional suit, his curly hair neatly styled. Élodie's heart stopped. Paul? He smiled, approaching her. Élodie, I'm Dr. Paul Andre, Mr. Andre's son. I posed as a guard to see who would love me for me, not my wealth. And you loved me from the first day. Élodie, stunned, whispered, You're the boss's son? Tears welled in her eyes, a mix of surprise and joy. I loved you thinking you had nothing. Andre moved, placed a hand on her shoulder. You're a rare woman, Élodie. Welcome to our family. At that moment, Camille arrived, decked out like a movie star, her jewelry sparkling under the chandeliers. Seeing Paul, she exploded. What is this guard doing here? Paul turned to her, his gaze steady. I'm not a guard, Camille. I'm Doctor. Paul Andre, Mr. Andre's son. Camille staggered, her face shifting from anger to disbelief. That's impossible. Andre stepped in, his voice deep. Camille, you failed. You insulted my son, lied about him, and showed your true self. You have no place in this family. Camille, humiliated, tried to defend herself, but her words caught in her throat. Escorted out by security, she broke down in tears, realizing the depth of her fall. After the dramatic confrontation at the Okonkwo residence, the atmosphere at Andre and Sons shifted subtly. Employees, unaware of Paul's true identity, sensed something significant had happened. Whispers circulated, fueled by Camille's sudden, personal leave after her humiliation. Élodie continued her work with the same diligence, but a new light shone in her eyes. Knowing who Paul was only deepened her love for him. He had chosen her for her heart, not her status, and that was worth more than all the gold in the world. Paul, free from his disguise, spent his days preparing for his official role in the company. Andre appointed him special advisor, a position that allowed him to learn the business while pursuing his medical projects. But his mind was on Élodie and the future he envisioned with her. He knew he wanted to spend his life with her, and he decided not to wait any longer to prove it. One evening, a week after the revelation, Paul invited Élodie to dinner at a discreet but elegant restaurant in Victoria Island, far from the company's prying eyes. The terrace, adorned with fairy lights and overlooking the lagoon, offered a breathtaking view. Élodie, in an emerald green dress sewn by her mother, glowed under the stars. Paul, in a white shirt and dark trousers, couldn't take his eyes off her. "Élodie," he began, his voice slightly trembling. "These past weeks have been the most incredible of my life. As a guard, I saw the best and worst in people. But you showed me what it means to love without conditions." Élodie smiled, her cheeks flushing. "Paul, you've given me so much more. You trusted me. You saw me for who I am." Paul stood, knelt before her, and pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. Inside sparkled a white gold ring with a modest but elegant diamond. "Élodie Nwosu, will you marry me?" Tears filled Élodie's eyes. She nodded, speechless, then whispered, "Yes, Paul. 1,000 times yes." The diners around them applauded, touched by the scene. Paul slipped the ring onto Élodie's finger, and they embraced under the stars, their hearts beating as one. The moment, simple yet perfect, marked the start of a new chapter. 3 months later, Lagos lit up for Paul and Élodie's wedding. The ceremony, held in a lush botanical garden, blended tradition and modernity. White tents adorned with tropical flowers sheltered guests from across Nigeria and beyond. Andre, in a royal blue agbada embroidered with gold, beamed with pride as he walked Élodie down the aisle. The bride, in an ivory lace gown designed by her mother, was breathtaking, her smile outshining the afternoon sun. Paul, in a matching traditional suit, couldn't take his eyes off her. The ceremony, officiated by a local pastor, was filled with emotion. Their vows, heartfelt and poignant, brought tears to many eyes. "Élodie, you loved me when I was just a guard," Paul declared, his voice strong and clear. "I promise to love and cherish you, not for what we have, but for who we are." Élodie, eyes shining, replied, "Paul, you showed me that true love sees beyond appearances. I promise to walk beside you in joy and in trials forever." The reception was a burst of color and music. A high-life band played lively tunes, and guests danced to Yoruba drums. Tables overflowed with Nigerian delicacies, pounded yam with a goosey stew, fragrant jollof rice, and coconut cakes. Andre gave a moving speech, officially welcoming Élodie into the family. "My son has found a woman with a pure heart," he said, raising his glass. "To Paul and Élodie, may their love light up the world." Amid the celebration, an incident drew attention. Camille, despite her humiliation, had tried to crash the wedding, perhaps hoping to win back Andre's favor. Dressed in a garish gown, she was quickly spotted by security and escorted out before entering the garden. From her car, she watched the lights of the festivities, the laughter and dancing, and a wave of regret washed over her. She had lost everything to her pride, and that truth hit her like a slap. A year later, Paul and Élodie were thriving. They had settled into a modern yet cozy home in Lekki, an upscale Lagos neighborhood. Paul split his time between the hospital, where he worked as a pediatric surgeon, and the family company, overseeing social projects, including free health care for underprivileged children. Élodie, promoted to director of a company branch, was respected for her compassionate leadership. She had also launched a program to train young women in management, a project close to her heart. Their happiness was crowned by the birth of their son, Samuel, a cheerful baby with sparkling eyes resembling his father's. The name, meaning beloved, reflected the deep love binding their family. Andre, now a grandfather, spent hours rocking Samuel, sharing stories of his own childhood in Anambra. "This boy will be a great man," like his father, he said, eyes misty with pride. Camille, meanwhile, had spiraled into regret. After her humiliating exit from the Okonkwo residence, she had tried to maintain her fling with Julian, hoping he'd be her ticket to a better life. But Julian, true to his playboy reputation, left her soon after to join his family in Dubai. Camille then discovered she was pregnant, a secret she kept, hoping Julian would return. He never did. Alone without a stable job after being fired from Andre and Sons for misconduct, she lived in a small apartment in Yaba, struggling to make ends meet. One evening, sitting on her balcony, she whispered, "I lost everything." The words, heavy with truth, echoed in the silent night. The story of Paul, Élodie, and Camille is more than a romance. It's a parable about humility, true love, and the consequences of pride. By posing as a guard, Paul proved that wealth doesn't define a man, but his heart does. Élodie, with her kindness and sincerity, showed that true love transcends appearances and material ambitions. Camille, blinded by arrogance, learned the hard way that pride leads to a fall. This story invites us to reflect. How do we treat those who seem beneath us? Are we guided by love and respect, or by ambition and ego? In a world obsessed with status and money, Paul and Élodie remind us that the truest riches lie in the heart. Dear friends, what lesson do you take from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments. If Paul and Élodie's story touched you, give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more. Hit the bell to stay notified of our next videos. Thank you for watching, and may your heart always be guided by love and humility. Stay blessed.